Two of 2024's highest polling candidates jabbing each other over China on the third GOP debate stage.
So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
Who will secure second place behind former President Trump? American colleges are getting anti-Semitic, but what's behind the surge? A report delves into how billions of dollars from Hamas and China are flooding our campuses. Should the U.S. collaborate with China on scientific research? A group of lawmakers making a case for President Biden to consider. What do you think? Let us know below and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. And what's become a highlight from the third Republican presidential debate, two Trump rivals clashing with each other over China on Wednesday. Presidential hopefuls Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are racing for the second place spot, with the GOP primary just 2 months away. This as President Trump continues leading the polls. Here's the clip of the sparring.
Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military.
You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their number one way to do economic development.
DeSantis was referring to a 2016 deal. South Carolina's Richland County Council struck a deal with a Chinese fiberglass company called Jishi. Under it, the county would give Jishi almost 200 acres of land, as long as it invested a certain amount of money and created a certain number of jobs. Jishi's CEO also serves as the head of the Communist Party cell within the company. It's a common department found within large-scale Chinese entities and often gets a say in company decisions. The Chinese company's products are used for military and defense purposes. Jishi's plant in South Carolina sits less than 10 miles from Fort Jackson, a U.S. Army training center. Then Governor Haley praised the investment at the time, having called it a huge win for the state. Though both Haley and DeSantis have taken a tough stance on China in their presidential campaigns.
In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Haley didn't hesitate to respond.
Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes. You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it, and of course we banned China from buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing land.
scrubbed the website
So we've stood
last
up
week.
and
Governor DeSantis signed a bill this June shuttering Enterprise Florida, the state's business recruitment agency. What about Haley's accusation about a company making Chinese military planes? Here's what happened. A company called Cirrus Aircraft opened 2 branches in Central Florida last year. One of them was located at the Orlando Executive Airport, which is about 12 miles away from a Naval Training Systems Technology Center. Here's the kicker. According to the New York Post, Cirrus Aircraft is a subsidiary of AVIC. It's a state-owned Chinese defense conglomerate sanctioned by the United States. AVIC makes fighter jets and drones for the Chinese military. Billions of dollars are flowing from foreign adversaries to our college campuses, enabling information campaigns from regimes like the Chinese Communist Party and the Hamas terrorist group. Now, the House is taking action to shine a light on this pervasive foreign influence. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the story.
Education is a battleground for influence over the next generation of Americans. And unfortunately, our foreign adversaries understand this very well.
That's the heart of the issue that Republican Congresswoman Michelle Steele and Virginia Foxx are tackling with their Deterrent Act. It would require colleges and its staff to report even $1 worth of gifts given to them by foreign countries of concern.
We know that the Chinese Communist Party is not giving money to these institutions for nothing. They may just be wanting to influence the way students think.
An issue that lawmakers on both sides acknowledge, leading to a bipartisan vote to advance the bill to the House floor.
What China has been doing in terms of intellectual property threat goes well beyond traditional espionage. The scale of threat is unprecedented in human history.
To infiltrate their development programs or research programs, particularly when it comes to advanced military research.
But China's subversion is only one piece of the puzzle. College students are directly impacted today with rising anti-Semitism. A report finds that over 200 American colleges and universities received $13 billion from foreign regimes, which has helped fuel anti-Semitism on college campuses.
And the colleges and universities raking in money from the Middle East appear to be ignoring Title VI while they allow Jewish students to be threatened and harassed on campus.
And the House Judiciary Committee held a separate hearing to examine the rise in anti-Israel sentiment on college campuses and the violence that are directed at students who are supporting Israel. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Should the U.S. continue to collaborate on scientific research with China? A group of Republicans in Congress is calling on President Biden not to renew a deal with Beijing. The lawmakers are Congress members Darrell Issa, Mike Gallagher, Andy Barr, and Senator Pete Ricketts. They say the U.S.-China Science and Technology Cooperation Agreement, or STA, has overwhelmingly benefited China. In a letter to the White House obtained by the New York Post, the lawmakers wrote they are gravely concerned that the STA is furthering the Chinese Communist Party's ambitions to supplant the United States as the world's leading innovation powerhouse. The deal first came into being in 1979 under President Jimmy Carter. Since then, the U.S. and China have collaborated on research in fields from physics to earth sciences to industrial technology. Congressional lawmakers pressuring President Biden and China. They want China to free political prisoners, some of them American citizens. Let's zoom in.
Lawmakers from both parties and both chambers releasing this letter to Biden today. It contains this list of Chinese political prisoners and unjustly detained American citizens. The lawmakers want Biden to demand the release of those people when meeting with Chinese officials at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit next week. The list contains a total of 40 people. 3 of those are American citizens or permanent residents. A prominent figure among the 40 is renowned human rights lawyer Gao Zhisheng. The CCP unjustly detained him for defending Christians and Falun Gong practitioners in China. The CCP continues to persecute both of these spiritual practices.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in New Delhi, India on Thursday. He and Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be meeting with their Indian counterparts later this week. Officials say the talks will focus on security challenges in the Indo-Pacific and concerns over China, rather than the wars in Israel and Ukraine. The meeting is part of what's called the 2+2 dialogue, launched in 2018 to boost defense cooperation and align policy objectives in the Indo-Pacific region. India's ties with the U.S. have grown steadily stronger in recent months. The country is of strategic importance to the U.S., acting as a counterbalance to China alongside Beijing's influence in the Asia-Pacific region. India's large economy also provides trade opportunities for the U.S. Taiwan and the UK are deepening economic ties. They signed an enhanced trade partnership Wednesday after a high-level meeting in London. Taiwanese officials said the agreement would serve as a model for other European countries to improve their own trade ties with Taiwan. With the trade deal, the island hopes to further its case for joining a major Pan-Pacific free trade pact and bolster its ties with other European states. Despite being a member of the World Trade Organization, Taiwan has few formal trade agreements with other countries due to pressure from the Chinese regime. Beijing reacted to the latest trade deal, telling the UK to stop its efforts to enhance ties with Taiwan. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. is deeply concerned over military ties between Russia and North Korea. He made the remarks during a visit to South Korea. Here's more.
Blinken and the South Korean foreign minister said they were considering a so-called extended deterrence strategy to counter threats from Pyongyang. The leaders also discussed furthering strategic cooperation with Japan. Blinken urged China to play a role in curbing risky transactions between Moscow and Pyongyang.
China has a unique relationship with North Korea. As a result of that relationship, it has real influence, and we do look to China to use that influence to play a constructive role in pulling North Korea back from this irresponsible and dangerous behavior.
The U.S., South Korea, and Japan have condemned alleged arms shipment from North Korea to Russia. They pointed to cargo shipments from the reclusive state to Russia as evidence.
The spotlight is back on a shipping port in Sri Lanka. The U.S. is getting ready to pour over $550 million into the port of Colombo. The loan will fund construction of a deepwater shipping container terminal. It's coming from a federal agency called the U.S. International Development Finance Corps. The agency says the goal is to craft critical infrastructure to transform Colombo into a world-class logistics hub. Ball CEO Scott Nathan says the new terminal will strengthen U.S. allies in the region, expand shipping capacity, and create greater prosperity for Sri Lanka without adding to the nation's debt woes. Critics of China's global infrastructure project, the Belt and Road Initiative, say it left Sri Lanka in financial turmoil through engaging in debt trap diplomacy. Countries like Laos also signed on for the Chinese infrastructure loans, but later found itself saddled with debt worth more than its entire GDP. Amid those concerns, the Philippines is pulling out of the Belt and Road. Beijing had promised to lend the country $5 billion to build 3 railway lines. But the Philippines transport minister explained the withdrawal came after China failed to respond to funding requests. That's alongside a long-term dispute over territory in the South China Sea. Recent clashes between Philippine Coast Guard ships and Chinese vessels have ended in collisions, with the Chinese ships attempting to block supply drop-offs to Philippine troops stationed on a contested shoal there. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than 2 years. Last month, YouTube removed our demonetization status, but reimposed it within days. If you'd like to support us, subscribe to our partner platform, Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes, or consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus. Here's what to look out for in our second half. The border, U.S. farmland, and influence in American schools. All hot words surrounding China that came up in Wednesday night's presidential debate. How big is the China threat that America is facing? And what countermeasures can we take? Andrew Thornbrook, national security correspondent for the Epic Times, weighs in. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.